Have you ever felt the sky hold its breath? Not in fear, not in wonder, but in reverence. There are places where the air forgets to move, where time becomes water and water becomes sound. The Amazon does not open itself to the unlistening. It waits, and it remembers. And when it whispers, the roots and stones listen. It is said that before there was language, before there was light, before the first seed cracked its husk, a serpent swam through the dark water of the world's beginning. Not a serpent of scales, but of breath and silence, of watching. Her name was Yakumama, mother of the water, and she has never left. Even now the black rivers turn with her coils. Even now she watches from beneath, where sunlight never reaches and bones dissolve into song. But few remember her name. Fewer still speak it aloud. There was once a village called Arutima, carved gently into the curve of the river like a scar that healed badly. The homes stood on stilts, tall and quiet, as if they were afraid to touch the water. The villagers sang in the mornings to greet the sun. They sang in the evenings to lull the darkness. But in the hours between dusk and moonrise, there was no singing, only waiting. Among them lived a boy named Kai. He had a gaze too deep for his age, like someone who had heard the stars speak and dared not interrupt. He did not speak often, and when he did, it was to ask questions no one wished to answer. Why does the river glow at night? Why do we never fish near the bend? Why do the elders look afraid when it rains too long? His mother hushed him with soft hands. His grandmother hushed him with soft eyes. His father said nothing at all, a silence too heavy to carry, one that sank like stone. Kai's father had once been a singer of river songs, a guide of the old chants. But one year, during the wet season that never ended, he vanished for 3 days and returned with eyes that no longer blinked. He walked with water still clinging to his skin, even in the sun. He would not say where he had been, but from that day forward, he never touched the river again. Kai noticed things others didn't. How the herons stopped flying near the moon's edge, how the water swirled without wind, how the jungle seemed to breathe more slowly when he was near the river's deepest bend. That bend was called the Curve of Teeth. No one said why. No one needed to. Children were told stories of creatures with eyes the size of bowls, mouths filled with darkness, and songs that lured the careless to sleep forever beneath the roots. But Kai was not afraid, not exactly. He felt something closer to longing. Each night, when the moon turned thin and silver, Kai stood at the river's edge. And he listened. At first, there was nothing, only the chirping, the croaking, the far-off cry of something winged and restless. But then, beneath it all, a sound. Not a voice, not a song, a hum, a trembling in the belly of the earth. It made his teeth ache. It made the hairs on his arms stand like trees in wind. And yet, it felt familiar, like something calling him not away but back. One night, when the stars were clouded and the air was heavy with rain, Kai stepped into the canoe his father had once carved. The wood was old, softened by sun and sorrow, but it still floated like a dream. He did not tell anyone. He did not pack food. He brought only a bone charm on a string, a gift from his grandmother, worn smooth by her thumb. And he let the river carry him. Downstream, the trees leaned in, as if to listen. Shadows stretched longer than they should. Somewhere in the distance, a jaguar called, low and mournful. Hours passed, or minutes, or none at all. Then he saw it. The bend, the curve of teeth. The water grew darker, though no clouds hid the sky. The air smelled of stone and something old, not decay, but memory. And there, in the middle of the river, a stillness, a circle of perfect calm, as if the world had forgotten to stir. Kai stopped paddling. The canoe drifted into the hush, and the water rose, not in waves, not in splashes. It rose as if pulled by breath, slow, deliberate. From below, A great coil surfaced beside the canoe, wide as the trunk of the ceiba tree. Not scaled, but slick and smooth like polished obsidian. It shimmered with the light of things unseen. Blue, green, gold, all at once, and none at all. Kai did not move. A second coil rose, then a third, and then eyes. Not eyes like his own, eyes without lid or lash, eyes that saw not his face, but his blood, his fear, his longing all at once. The river hissed with silence. Kai reached for the bone charm. It felt warm in his palm, pulsing with something not his own. The serpent did not strike, did not flee. She watched, and from the deep, a sound rose, not into his ears, but into his bones. A story told not in words, but in echo. It is said Yakumama does not kill without cause. She remembers every child born under the rain. She remembers the names forgotten by mothers, the faces lost in flood. She saw Kai. Not as he was, but as he had been long ago, a boy reborn, a soul returned. And in that moment, the river opened. Kai fell, or was pulled, into the black. No splash, no struggle, just breath meeting breath. Beneath the surface, time was not a line, but a pool. Kai saw visions flicker like fish, a village swallowed by waves, a serpent coiled around a drowned tree, a man singing to the stars, tears hidden in rain, a boy holding a bone charm, standing where his father once stood. He did not breathe, but he did not drown. He remembered. He remembered his father's eyes before they changed, the night he left, the silence after. And then, light. Not above, but within. The river released him. He awoke in his canoe, drifting gently toward the dawn. The forest was quiet, not from fear, but peace. Birds called again. Wind returned. The hum was gone. Kai touched the charm. It was cold now. He looked into the water. No eyes stared back, only his own, but something had changed. He no longer feared the river, and the river, it seemed, no longer feared him. When he returned to Arutima, no one asked where he had gone, but they looked at him differently, not with worry, but with the hush of recognition. As if they, too, remembered something. His father met him at the water's edge, said nothing, only placed a hand on his shoulder, and for the first time in years, stepped into the river. They say Yakumama still coils beneath the black, still watches. But sometimes she lets one return, not as a warning, but as a remembering. And further still, there is one more story. Have you ever seen a tree that touches the sky? Not in stories, not in dreams, but with your own breath caught inside your chest, standing before a thing so wide, so still, that time folds its arms and kneels. In the deepest hush of the Amazon, there are trees that rise not only in root and trunk, but in memory. The ceiba is one such tree, a mother of branches, a keeper of light, a spine between the world above and the one beneath. They say that in the highest arms of one such ceiba, a woman lives, or waits, or watches. No one agrees on what she is. Some say she was once a weaver, whose husband drowned during the first flood, and whose son never returned from the reeds. Grief turned her into smoke, and feathers came to cover her sorrow. Others say she was never human at all, but the spirit of forgotten mothers, braided together into one shape, dwelling in the sky for those who seek silence. In the village of Sanumo, where the moss never dries and the ground sings when you walk, the old ones remember her name in murmurs, Iraima, and she is not to be summoned. But stories, like roots, stretch when no one is watching. There was once an elder named Haku. His skin was papered with sun and age, his breath slow as river driftwood. He had outlived his siblings, his lovers, even his own children. Only the jungle remained, and his dreams, which came each night with fire and feathers. Each morning, he would wake with tears on his face, and each morning he would forget why. But the dream returned, again, again, the same voice in the canopy, the same eyes, not cruel, not kind, only vast, watching, waiting. One morning the dream did not fade. It followed him into waking like a scent that would not leave. That day, Haku gathered a single item, a flute carved from the bone of a river boar, strung with dried petals that never fell off. He had not played it in decades. It had belonged to his sister, who died when the flood came and never stopped rising. He did not speak as he left. He walked alone into the forest, where the vines were thick and the light moved like water. No one stopped him. The villagers of Sanumo knew the look of someone chasing silence. For 3 days, Haku walked. He passed forgotten stones where old gods once sat. He passed trees with faces carved into bark, mouths worn away by rain. He passed birds who did not flee and frogs who did not sing. Then he saw her, not the woman, the tree, the sabre. She rose like a mountain softened by dream. Her roots spread like fingers curled around the earth. Her bark was pale and lined with age. Her branches vanished into mist. Haku fell to his knees, not in prayer, not in weakness, but in recognition. He did not climb right away. First he waited. He listened to the breath of the jungle, the echo of insect wings, the strange pulse in his palm. Then, as dusk kissed the world with its purple hush, he stood and began the climb. It is said the sabre does not allow every climber. Some are swallowed by bark. Some are lost between the limbs. Some never leave. But Haku was not afraid. He had already lost everything worth losing. Higher he went. The bark shifted under his hands, warm, almost breathing. Shadows danced. Leaves whispered names not his own. Halfway up, he paused. Not for rest, but for stillness. From here, the world looked different. Not smaller, only slower. The river curved like a sleeping snake. The village behind him had vanished. Only green remained, and mist, and memory. Then he saw her, high in the boughs, shrouded in blue. She sat upon a branch wide as a sleeping mat, wrapped in feathers the colour of dusk. Her skin shimmered like smoke caught in sun. Her face was not clear, always shifting, always between. She did not look at him, but she saw. Haku did not speak. Words had left him. Instead, he raised the bone flute and blew a single note. It did not sound like music. It sounded like wind remembering something. The woman turned her head. Her eyes were not eyes. They were voids filled with light. And in them, Haku saw himself, not old, not bent, but as a child, clinging to his sister's hand, laughing as rain fell in buckets and the river sang them home. The sound of the flute faded. Stillness returned. Then she stood, and with a rustle softer than breath, she stepped from the branch into the air and floated. Not up, not down. She moved like memory, like smoke. She circled him once, slow as sorrow, and when she passed, his chest ached. Not with pain, but with knowing. He had forgotten his sister's face. Now he remembered. He had forgotten the lullabies his mother sang. Now they echoed in his bones. He had forgotten the way his own heart had once hoped. Now it stirred again, like coals waking from sleep. The woman whispered, not in language, but in wind. And he understood. The grief had not ruined him. It had made space. She was not a goddess. She was a mirror, a vessel for what we bury to survive. Haku wept, not loudly, not bitterly. He wept like roots drink rain. When he opened his eyes, the woman was gone. Only a single feather remained, blue, long, glowing faintly in the dusk. He tucked it into the string of the flute and began the descent. Each step felt lighter. By the time he reached the ground, the sun had returned. The trees were singing again. The frogs dared to leap. The jungle breathed. And Haku, for the first time in many years, felt hunger. He returned to Sunumo in silence. No one asked where he had gone, but the children noticed something new in his step, a quiet rhythm, a music in his bones. That night, he played the flute, and those who listened dreamed of feathers, of sisters, of smoke, of things long forgotten, now gently remembered. And further still, there is one more story. Have you ever looked into still water and felt it look back? Not your reflection, not the simple face you wear in the daylight, but something beneath it, watching, waiting, knowing something about you that you've long since forgotten. In the Amazon, mirrors are not made of glass, they are made of water. And some waters do not reflect, they remember. There is a place deep within the forest called La Laguna de los Ojos, the Lagoon of Eyes. Small and black as obsidian, it rests like a coin lost in the hand of the jungle. No river feeds it, no stream leaves it. It simply is, a wound of stillness in a world that always moves. The villagers of Muruti do not go near it. Fishermen say the water is cursed. Healers say it is sacred. Children say it is haunted. And the old ones, they say nothing at all. But there was once a girl who did not listen to stories. Her name was Luna, a quiet child with a gaze that wandered. She was born on a night when the moon was hidden and the wind would not speak. Her mother said she never cried as an infant, only stared. Luna had a sister named Solma, 2 years older, full of laughter and restless feet. Solma sang to the birds, danced in the storms, and ran faster than the wind. Wherever Luna was still, Solma was flame. They were never apart, until the night of the festival. Each year, the villagers gathered to honor the spirits of the water, offering fruit, song, and painted stones to the river's edge. Drums echoed like heartbeats. Fireflies lit the faces of those long gone. Luna and Solma played at the margins, weaving crowns of fern and feather. Then, without a sound, Solma was gone. No splash, no cry, only the whisper of her name through the trees. They searched all night. Lanterns skimmed the riverbanks, canoes scraped the shallows. The air turned colder. The frogs fell silent. And there, in the morning fog, Solma was found, sitting at the edge of the lagoon. Alive, unharmed, but changed. She did not speak. Not that day, not the next, not ever again. Her eyes, once bright and dancing, were cloudy, pale as pearl. When she looked at Luna, it was as if she was seeing something beyond her, not through her, beyond. Solma never returned to the world of songs and laughter. She sat alone in the shade, drawing circles in the dirt, humming a tune that no one recognized. The village grieved, but moved on. The lagoon became darker in their minds, darker in their stories. But Luna never forgot. As she grew, the silence in her sister's eyes echoed louder than any storm. And one day, with a quiet heart and a bundle of herbs tied by string, she made the journey alone. It was 10 years after the night Solma was taken. The forest recognized her. Branches parted without touch. Animals paused, not in fear, but in witness. When she reached the lagoon, the water was perfectly still. So black it looked solid, so silent it felt awake. Luna sat at the edge. She lit no fire. She spoke no prayer. Instead, she opened her bundle. Inside were 3 things: a braid of Solma's hair, a stone from their childhood path, and a question. Luna placed them at the edge. Then she leaned over the water and whispered, not aloud, but with her whole being. What did she see down there? Truly. The surface trembled, not from wind, not from movement, from memory. And then, the water opened, not like a splash, like a mouth. It pulled her in with no sound, no violence, only invitation. She fell not into cold, but into knowing. Beneath the surface, there was no weight, only shadow and shimmer, only hush. She saw faces, not her own, not Solma's, older, stranger, eyes without lids, gazes without end. They did not speak. They watched. They showed her a vision, not a story, but a feeling. Solma, standing at the edge of the world between sleep and waking. A girl too alive to belong to silence, but too silent to return to the living. She had seen not a monster, but a memory too vast to carry. A mirror that showed what had been forgotten, what had been taken, what waits beneath all our faces. The lagoon did not steal Solma. It revealed her, and she could not bear it. Luna understood. The water did not hunger for flesh. It hungered for truth. And truth, unasked for, unprepared, can undo even the strongest spirit. A choice appeared before her. She could return as she was, or she could keep looking. She looked, and what she saw: a city of bones beneath the trees, statues weeping insects, children playing in rivers of stars, an old woman with Solma's eyes whispering into the ear of a jaguar, a mirror made of eyes, not glass, and her own face, ancient, not older, ancient. Then she woke, on the shore, alone. The lagoon was still, but something inside her had shifted. She rose. Her legs trembled, not with fear, but with memory. Back in Muruti, Solma looked up as Luna approached, and for the first time in 10 years, she blinked. Then, softly, she smiled. No words, no need. Luna never spoke of what she saw, not to the others, not even to Solma. But from that day forward, they sat together again, in the shade, drawing circles, and those who passed swore they could hear a humming, a tune that stirred something forgotten inside their hearts. Some say the lagoon still watches. Some say it waits only for those who bring questions shaped like love. But listen, there is yet another name whispered in the wind. Have you ever walked into a forest so dense that it no longer felt like a place, but a presence? Not merely trees, not merely leaves, but something deeper, a being made of breath and moss, of hush and hunger, a body too wide to see, too old to name. In such forests, sound behaves differently. It does not travel, it sinks. Footsteps vanish before they land. Voices curl and die between the vines. Even the birds, bold singers of daylight, grow quiet, and in these forgotten green places, they say a watcher moves. It is not beast, it is not God, it is not ghost, it is Tupaira, the one that wears bark for skin and bone for memory. They say Tupaira has no true shape, only a shadow that mimics. It follows those who enter without reverence. It walks behind the proud. It listens to the loud. And when it chooses to be seen, it is already too late. But it does not always come to punish. Sometimes it comes to remember. Once, there lived a hunter named Iaro, who believed nothing in the forest could match him. He was swift, silent, skilled. He could read the claw marks on a tree and tell you not just the animal, but its mood, its hunger, its dreams. He moved like mist. He never missed. But Yarrow did not believe in spirits. They are stories for the idle, he would say, sharpening his blade beneath the moon. Whispers for those who've forgotten how to see. He entered the forest not with song, but with certainty. And for a while, the forest let him. He returned from each hunt with meat, feathers, skins. He brought wealth to his people. Pride grew in his chest like a root that no longer bends, until the day he found no trail, not a footprint, not a broken twig, not a single drop of blood. The forest gave him nothing. He wandered for hours. The light shifted strangely. The sun seemed to stay still. Time did not pass. It turned. Birds did not call. Insects did not hum. Even the wind forgot its path. Yarrow stood still. Breath held. That was when he noticed it. His shadow was wrong. It did not match the shape of his arms. It moved half a beat behind him, and when he stilled, it kept shifting, slow, deliberate, like bark flexing in rain. He turned. Nothing. But the feeling of being watched deepened. Not hostile, not warm, only vast. He pressed forward, deeper than he'd ever gone. The trees grew stranger. gnarled, with faces hidden in their knots. The moss glowed faintly. The silence grew thick. At last, he reached a clearing. In the center stood a great tree, blackened and twisted, its roots coiled like sleeping snakes. It pulsed, not with light, with memory, and from behind it stepped a figure, not tall, not short, not anything. Its body was bark, flaked and ancient. Its eyes were hollow, filled with shadow. Around its neck hung a necklace of bone, small, curved, human. It did not walk, it arrived. Yarrow froze, not from fear, from recognition. The figure did not speak, but it began to move, slowly, arms outstretched, and then it mirrored him, every breath, every twitch, every thought. When he stepped forward, so did it. When he raised his blade, so did it. And when he tried to run, it stood still and smiled. It was not a hunter, it was his forgetting. All that Yarrow had ignored, disbelieved, mocked, stood before him, wearing the body he had earned. And it began to whisper, not in words, in memories. The rabbit he killed for sport, the bird whose nest he shattered, the cry of a fawn he did not silence before the blade struck, the small lies, the laughter at sacred things. Each whisper left a mark on his skin, bark blooming along his arms, curling across his chest. He fell to his knees, not in pain, in knowing. The forest does not forget. It only waits for the moment when you are still enough to hear. Yarrow did not weep. He removed his blade and laid it on the earth. He tore the feathers from his belt. He took off his necklace of tooth and claw. Then he began to speak, not loudly, not proudly. He told the forest a story, his story, of hunger, of pride, of blindness. He offered it not as apology, but as memory, and the shadow listened. The bark on his body receded, the whispering ceased, and Tupaira, the one made of forgetting, stepped back, then vanished. Yarrow awoke alone. The clearing was gone. The strange trees had returned to normal. The birds sang again. But he did not return the same. He hunted no more. He became a guide, teaching children the names of roots, the paths of wind, the songs of stone. He carved no weapons, only flutes. And when asked why he changed, he would say only this: some shadows do not follow. They lead. They say Tupaira still walks the deepest woods, still mirrors those who enter with closed hearts, but the story does not end there. Have you ever heard the wind sing? Not the rustle of leaves, not the howl of storms, but a song so soft, so deep, it feels like breath caught between worlds, the space where life fades and memory begins. In the upper rivers, where mist dances with moss and the sky touches the water in secret, the people tell of a wind that sings for the dead. They say it hums like a hollow reed, low and mournful, circling the homes of those who soon will leave this world. No one knows where it comes from. Some say it is the breath of the ancestors, a final lullaby. Others believe it is a messenger sent by the feathered gods to guide lost souls home. They call it Yari, the wind of farewell. In the village of Anari, tucked between river bends and mountains heavy with cloud, the people listen for Yari's song with quiet reverence. Among them lived a child named Nari, small, with eyes wide as the sky after rain, and a heart full of questions no one else dared ask. Nari heard the wind's song every night. At first, she thought it was a dream, a soft whisper weaving through the trees. But when the song returned night after night, growing louder, she could no longer deny its presence. The village grew uneasy. No one else heard the song. No one else spoke of it. The elder midwife, a woman wrapped in blankets of woven grass and ancient stories, told Nari that the wind had lost its way. Perhaps, she said, it calls not for one soul, but many. Nari did not understand. But the wind sang again, and it called her. One evening, beneath a sky thick with stars, Nari walked to the river's edge. The air was heavy with mist. The trees leaned closer, listening. The wind rose, soft as a sigh, and circled her once, twice. It carried voices, not clear, but felt. A mother's goodbye, a child's laughter, a hunter's last breath. Nari closed her eyes. She did not fear. Instead, she whispered, "I hear you." The wind carried her words into the dark. Then the mist parted. Before her stood a figure, not fully flesh, not fully spirit. A woman draped in feathers, her eyes bright with stars and sorrow. She spoke not with voice, but with presence. Nari felt the stories flow through her, of lives once lived, of love and loss woven together like vines. The woman touched Nari's hand, and in that touch, Nari felt the weight of grief and the lightness of release. The wind sang louder, wrapping them both in a cocoon of sound. Nari understood. Yari was not a harbinger of death, but a guide of souls, carrying the old ones to the place where stories never end. The woman smiled, a light in the dark. Then she vanished. Nari returned to the village with a new song in her heart. She taught the children to listen, to honor the wind, to sing for those who have gone, and for those who remain. And the village changed. The fear faded, the silence grew soft, and the wind's song became a prayer. They say Yari still sings. Sometimes, when the night is still, you can hear it, the wind that sings for the dead. And still, the jungle remembers another whisper. Have you ever dreamed a dream so old it felt like the world itself was breathing through you? Not the dreams of faces or places, but the dreams that come wrapped in feather and fire, the kind that carry the breath of gods and the weight of stars. In the heart of the Amazon, beyond the rivers and the mist, there is a legend whispered beneath the leaves, of a feathered god named Tupajara, the maker of sky and storm, the bearer of feathers and thunder. They say Tupajara's wings once brushed the earth with storms, and his eyes held the power of both creation and destruction. But one day, the god grew weary. He laid himself down beneath the great saber tree and fell into a dream that would shape the fate of all who dwell beneath the canopy. There was once a shaman named Aruana, whose voice could call the rain and whose hands healed the broken. He lived in a village cradled by rivers thick with fish and trees heavy with fruit. Aruana had heard the stories of Tupajara's dream, but never believed, until the night the sky cracked open with thunder louder than drums, and the earth trembled with a breath too deep to name. That night, Aruana dreamed too. He saw a figure cloaked in feathers, eyes blazing with stormlight. Tupajara spoke without words. His dream was a warning, a call to remember, a call to awaken. Aruana awoke with his heart pounding like a jaguar's chase. He knew the balance of the jungle was shifting. The rivers whispered warnings, the trees bent with sorrow. The animals moved restless, eyes wide and wild. He gathered the villagers beneath the tabor tree and told them of the dream. Tupajara calls us, he said softly. We must listen. Days passed like slow rivers. Aruana led the people in songs woven from wind and rain. They danced beneath the saber's arms, calling to the feathered god. The sky darkened with storm. Lightning danced across the canopy, and then the god appeared, not as a being of flesh, but as a feathered shadow, shifting and glowing with ancient power. He circled the village, slow as the turning of the world. His voice was thunder, his breath rain, and as he passed, the people felt their fears and doubts lift like mist. The jungle exhaled. Balance was restored. Aruana knew that the dream was not just a warning, it was a promise, that even in darkness, the feathered god watches, that even in silence, the wings of hope beat strong, and so the people remember. They honor Tupajara with feathers and fire. They listen for his dream in the thunder. And when the wind stirs the leaves just so, they say it is the god's breath, a lullaby for the world. And so it was. But the story does not end there.